Yeah, and Elise Jordan, you also, of course, had officials, administration officials, Kirstjen Nielsen, for instance, saying that this was actually a threat to our democracy. And along the same lines, a breaking story right now from the New York Times reporting that White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney warned then Homeland Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen not to mention how she was working to stop Russian attempts to meddle in the 2020 U.S. elections, to not mention that in front of President Trump. According to the report by Eric Schmidt and Maggie Haberman at a meeting this year, Mulvaney made it clear that President Trump still equated any public discussion of malign Russian election activity with questions about the legitimacy of his victory. According to one senior administration official, Mulvaney said it wasn't a great subject and should be kept at a low level. And it seems to me I'm missing. Hold on, I just can't go on here. Who else wrote this story? David Sanger, exactly. I didn't want to leave David Sanger out of there. Just incredible reporter for the Times. But this was, though, Elise, something that the head of the FBI, the head of the Justice Department, the head of NSA, I mean, everybody, National Director of Intelligence, everybody that's anybody in that administration said that actually Russian interference in the elections threatened American democracy. That was pretty straightforward.
Joe, it's still mind-blowing to me that dear leaders' feelings are more important than actually protecting the integrity of free and fair elections that is so sacrosanct in our democracy. It is insanity that we have a leader who his ego will not allow us to address critical national security threats because his feelings might be hurt and because it calls into question his election. And that's where we are today.
So, Mike, I want to ask you this question. Over the weekend, Rudy Giuliani went on television on a couple of occasions and said, I don't really see what the problem is with accepting material from an adversary, in this case Russia, that was stolen from the Democratic National Committee, from John Podesta's email account. I don't see any problem with that. No, that's not a problem. Now we have Jared Kushner on television saying, you know, this Facebook thing, this Russian interference thing was not a big deal, just a couple of ads here and there, right? What message does it send to Russia when the president's lawyer and the president's son-in-law, in the course of 48 hours, make those kind of statements about their view about Russian interference, and what does it, the message it sends, and what does it foretell for 2020?
Well, the message is obviously to Russia, you're already here. We know you're here. We're going to open the door a little bit wider now, because we're going to just ignore what you've done and what you're continuing to do and what you want to do in the 2020 election. The Kushner appearance, though, yesterday, John, in the Time magazine thing, the combination of arrogance and ignorance that he displayed in answering that question is nearly breathtaking, but it is predictable. And it is also very predictable as to why so many members of the intelligence community did not want to give him a security clearance. Based on that answer, he ought not to have a security clearance.
One other line from that New York Times report reads this way, quote, as a result, the issue did not gain the urgency or widespread attention that a president can command, and it meant that many Americans remain unaware of the latest versions of Russian interference. So, Joe, when you look at this story, I think we've said this from the beginning, there was always a way, if it had been someone perhaps different than Donald Trump and someone with a different ego than Donald Trump, of saying, yes, Russia interfered in the 2016 election, but no, I had nothing to do with that. He could actually still make that case if he wanted to. He could say, Volume 1 of the Mueller report could not establish a conspiracy between my campaign and Russian government, but I accept my intel conclusions that, yes, Russia did interfere, and we've got to do more about it. That would be the responsible thing for a president to do.
Yeah, well, that would be responsible. The thing that many people in the White House, from the start, really have not been able to understand is why the president couldn't grasp the fact that he could claim victory and still go after Russia. He could claim victory and still say, I mean, as I've even said, Vladimir Putin had nothing to do with Donald Trump being elected president of the United States. They tried to influence the election, but most people that have looked at it don't think that they did. You can say both of those things, but again, as we've said from the beginning, Donald Trump has seen any suggestion that the Russians interfered in this election as somehow undermining the legitimacy of his presidential win. So it is surprising, but Willie, this is something, again, that we do have to be worried about in 2020. If you listen to the men and women that run our intel communities, if you listen to people in the Department of Homeland Security, this is critical. Also, I've just got to say, it would be nice to have a president that gets Russia right for once. Again, we have spent the first part of this century with 3 presidents who have misplayed Vladimir Putin. You had George W. Bush saying that he had looked deep into the eyes of Vladimir Putin and could read his soul and was a good guy. Well, a lot of bad behavior later and an invasion of Georgia. George W. Bush found out he was dead wrong. Barack Obama misplayed him. Barack Obama was warned time and time again about Russian interference in the 2016 election, in the spring of 2016, and did nothing. Of course, Mitch McConnell also said that he'd point fingers at Barack Obama if this became public, and he warned people, and so Barack Obama did nothing. The buck stopped with Barack Obama, by the way. But again, everybody thought that Hillary was going to win, so they didn't say anything. And now you have Donald Trump, who has sat there and done absolutely nothing in the face of Russian interference and his own intel agency saying that this is a threat to our American democracy. And again, nothing happens. This is 19 years of dramatic misplays by American presidents, and it's put Vladimir Putin in a much stronger position than he should be in right now.
And again, at this moment in particular, President Trump could say, the Mueller report in that first volume cleared my campaign of a conspiracy. Let's take this head on. It had nothing to do with my victory. Let's now prevent it from happening again. But he won't.
Turn the page.
Yeah, no, he doesn't appear to want to turn the page ever. The must-read opinion pages are ahead. Plus, for the first time ever, a major pharmaceutical distributor and several drug company executives are facing criminal charges for their role in the opioid crisis. We'll talk about what this means for that epidemic devastating American families. We're back in a moment on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.